Hello, this is Fred Haight speaking, and welcome to part 2 of What is Classical, entitled Art and Statecraft, the Greek Miracle. In this episode, I will continue to challenge the idea that art is merely entertainment. If art were merely entertainment, then we would be forced to conclude that the only standard you could apply is that it's merely a matter of personal taste from individual to individual, and who among us would dare to say that one person's taste is better than another's? If it did indeed boil down to simply differences in personal taste, then one might question why such institutions would seem to apply standards as critics, reviews, Grammy Awards, competitions even exist. Take an extreme example that reduces it to absurdity. There was once a fellow who said that he preferred the sound of a vacuum cleaner to the music of Mozart. Instead of offering the poor fellow some much-needed music lessons, they hooked electrodes up to his brain and found that indeed certain neurons demonstrated the same patterns when he was listening to a vacuum cleaner as those neurons did in others when listening to Mozart. Therefore, they argued, it is a matter of personal taste. Some people are just wired differently than others. While they may think they have made some type of egalitarian victory against value judgments, I would have to argue that an orchestra made up of nothing but vacuum cleaners would just suck. How then do we establish some type of universal standards? As is often the case, we have to look back to classical Greece for inspiration. And today we will see the beautiful connection between advances in art and advances in statecraft, the art of good government. Before I continue, though, I'm going to show you two statues, and I'm asking you to make a value judgment to decide not only which one is more beautiful and which one you like best, but which one just plain is best, and then think about how you would answer why it's best. Would you choose this one or this one? Both of these statues are inside a wonderful museum, the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, Greece, and they explain many of these matters in that museum. So let's take a stroll through it. For centuries, Greece produced statues called kouroi that were meant to commemorate the dead, and though they had minor differences, they were pretty much all the same. Arms hanging straight down, slight smile on the lips, left foot slightly in front of the right, though the knee was not bent, which makes it somewhat precarious. Though they were dedicated to specific individuals, what is there in them that tells you anything about what that individual did, who they were in life? What made their life unique and important? There were many cultures around at the time in which the individual human life meant little or nothing, and an art that does not distinguish one individual from another does little to challenge that mentality. The museum identifies that a revolution in art took place in the year 480 BC with this statue, Zeus throwing a lightning bolt. What's the difference between this and the kouroi? Well, one, it's a specific individual, Zeus, the king of the gods. Two, the subject is motion, he's throwing a lightning bolt. Three, it's also a moment of change. He's about to change the direction in which his right arm moves. From this point on, each Greek statue is different and unique, specific in terms of individuals, and represents motion and change. Here, a musician playing. Here, a courageous soldier continuing to fight even though he's practically cut in half, but he's not a Greek soldier, he's an enemy soldier. The artist is depicting not only the humanity but the courage in someone who many Greeks would consider to be nothing but a barbarian. The next examples are reliefs called stelae. Like the earlier Greek kuroi, they are meant to commemorate the recently deceased, but my, what a difference. This one shows mourning. A father, a grandfather, and a child rolled up into a ball of incomprehension on the ground. This is another stele depicting the same thing but with a different family, unique individuals. We come to see the departed not through an image of him or her, but what they meant to other people, what they meant to their loved ones. But you also have the celebration of new life, a newborn baby. They also developed a sense of history in art, though the Battle of Marathon took place before the revolution that began with the statue of Zeus throwing a lightning bolt. Many years later, they made steles like this depicting a soldier at the Battle of Marathon. And what you see in his eyes is not fear, terror, or anger, but a look of determination. Determination to defend his country and his civilization. 300 years later, Greek statuary reached incredible levels. All of these statues are in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, Greece. But what else was going on at the same time? The first Persian Empire, or Achaemenid Empire, was spreading. It was the largest empire the world had ever seen. It reached as far west as Greece, and Greek culture and everything it had accomplished was threatened with obliteration. In 492 BC, Persian Emperor Darius sent emissaries to all of the Greek city-states demanding immediate submission and subservience. Most Greek city-states submitted. Athens and Sparta refused. Now I must interject another question. If you lived in a pagan era and had to represent a deity, would it be better to do it like this? Or this? Or this? The latter two are Persian and are half man and half beast, actually more beast. The Greek gods could be cruel and capricious, but to my knowledge they are the first in history to be represented in fully human form. Perhaps it is yet another reflection of the elevation of the status of the human being that had been achieved in ancient Greece. In 490 BC, the Athenians pulled off a surprise upset defeat of the Persians at the Battle of Marathon, pictured here. The Persians invaded again in 480 BC, but leadership had passed from the deceased Darius to his son Xerxes, who, like all Persian emperors, was thought to be a living god. Though 300 Spartans bravely held off the Persians at Thermopylae, they were eventually overrun. Athens had to be evacuated before the Persians sacked it. Xerxes thought that if he could defeat the vastly inferior Greek navy in a final battle, that would be the end of Greece. He was so confident of victory that he set up a command post for himself in order to watch the festivities as though it were a sporting game. The Greek statesman and military leader Themistocles, who came from a middle-class family, which could have not happened in a place like the Persian Empire, outwitted Xerxes and laid a trap for him. He lured the overconfident Persian into following him into hot pursuit into the Straits of Salamis. The straits were narrow and provided little maneuvering room for the Persian ships. They were ambushed by hidden Greek ships, their escape route cut off, and were easily rammed, even ran into each other and sunk each other. Themistocles had applied the same creativity which his fellow Greeks had developed in science, art, and statecraft to military strategy. Instead of his desired easy victory, the overconfident Xerxes watched approximately 2/3 of his navy be captured or destroyed. Xerxes must have felt like he'd just been struck by a lightning bolt. This statue that completely changed Greek art was built in 480 BC, exactly the same year as the defeat of the Persians at Salamis. And that defeat was the turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars. Was the statue a direct celebration of the victory at Salamis? In a way it was. But traditions die stubbornly, and in order to change away from the centuries-old tradition of the Kouroi, a great debate over the necessity of change would had to have begun even before the Battle of Marathon. Greece needed to change if it was going to survive. That same year, 480 BC, is also seen as the beginning of what is known as the classical period of Greece, and is followed by what is known as the Golden Age of Greece, under the leadership of Pericles. During this Golden Age, another revolution in art is unleashed in classical drama. Aeschylus, the eldest of the three greatest Greek tragedians, had fought in both the battles of Marathon and Salamis. Sophocles was a teenager at the time of the Battle of Salamis, and Euripides was born in the same year as that battle, 480 BC. Socrates was born about 10 years afterwards, and Pericles was a teenager at the time of that crucial deciding point. During the rule of Pericles, Greece undertook the building of the great Parthenon, only 2 years after the Treaty of Callias, which finally ended the wars with Persia. The Parthenon is part of the Acropolis, which simply means high city, and sits at the highest point in Athens for the whole city to see. Dedicated to the virgin goddess of war and wisdom, Athena, today, almost 1,500 years later, it still stands there for the world to see. Unfortunately, if you wish to see the statues that adorned the inside of the Parthenon, you have to go to London and see the British Museum, because about 200 years ago, Lord Elgin just up and stole them, and the British have never seen fit to give them back. When the great English poet John Keats wrote his On Seeing the Elgin Marbles, perhaps he had a double meaning in mind with his final line when he called them a shadow of a magnitude. Look at these two pillars. One fits neatly and is finished, the other is rough. You might think that the various segments would stack up together like a Lego set, but they do not. Their surfaces are not flat, they are slightly curved, each one curved in a different way, and each one of these blocks fits in one place and one place only. Like the citizens of Athens, they are all unique. If you want to know more about the Parthenon, here is a link to a great article by my friend and colleague Pierre Baudry. The Acropolis features this huge amphitheater which holds thousands of people, and it also filled an important role in both art and statecraft. Too often, when we think of Greek democracy, we think of the right to go out and vote once every few years. That in itself does little. New plays were written to be presented in these amphitheaters that addressed burning issues of the day and of history. The entire population was expected to attend and debate these matters afterwards. Some of Aeschylus' plays were produced in this very amphitheater. Aeschylus himself had been a soldier in both the Battle of Marathon and the Battle of Salamis, and his very first play was produced a mere 8 years after that battle, and it is entitled, guess what? The Persians. Like Shakespeare and Schiller, Aeschylus is not didactic. He does not preach. He does not provide easy answers or solutions. He wishes to make his audience think. He could have easily written a Hollywood-style, feel-good, hip-hip hooray, we beat 'em, patriotic work, but he chose not to. He does not present the Persians in an unsympathetic, easy-to-hate way, but he does examine that which caused Xerxes to lose, the sin of hubris, satanic arrogance, something a living God could easily fall prey to. Was examining this question of hubris meant to chastise the Persians? Hardly. They had made themselves irrelevant. It was made to educate his fellow Greeks. Greece was coming into a power in a way that might be compared to how the United States came into power after World War II. Triumph of good over evil, but it could also fall prey to the same evil easily through the sin of hubris. When Aeschylus died, he wished only one thing to be placed on his tomb: fought at the Battle of Marathon. If you believe that art is no more than entertainment, then you might believe that he said that because he thought that his military service was far more important than his art. I doubt that sincerely. He simply did not see the difference in the way that we do today. They were part and parcel of the same thing, the fight to defend civilization as Greece had brought it forward at that point. The plays of Aeschylus were not meant as mere entertainment for the Greek people in between games at the Olympic. They were an essential part of it. They were part of the process of the people developing their consciousness, their ideas, their thoughts to the level of citizens who could be self-governing and hold on to their constitution.